Right. Good morning, everyone. I'll be presenting the article "Virtual Extensions Improve Perception-Based Instrument Alignment Using Optical See-Through Devices." I am Mohamed Benmahdjoub. I'm a PhD candidate in the Biomedical Imaging Group, Rotterdam, Erasmus MC, and I'm supervised by the professors Vero Nissen, Wolfius, and Theo van Walsum. In many types of surgeries, specifically cranial or orthognathic surgeries, the surgeons make use of navigation systems to achieve preoperative planned outcome. And for this, they use patient-specific data such as CT or MRI, in addition to tracking systems to track the anatomy and the instrument to perform, let's say, for example, an operation such as a drilling surgical operation. Now, these conventional navigation systems come with different challenges. The first one is the hand-eye coordination. So what you can see in the picture is that the surgeon is trying to drill from top to bottom, but he's seeing his drill actually going from left to right, which is really not intuitive. The second challenge is that surgeons keep switching the focus from surgical side to screen and going back and forth, which is not convenient. And the last challenge would be that a surgeon is working on a 3D environment, but what he's getting as a feedback is 2D images. And actually, this requires the surgeon to mentally reconstruct the 3D aspect of the anatomy, which is sometimes hard to do. Now, in the literature, augmented reality has been suggested as a solution to these challenges. So it mainly could solve the hand-eye coordination and the switch of focus, because you have the anatomical the models projected on the anatomical or surgical site. But for the depth perception, it's still a challenge in AR navigation, even when using optical see-through devices. So some studies in the literature pointed out that there is a depth underestimation in matching and reaching virtual objects using see-through devices. So actually, it's kind of a problem, because surgeons generally try to reach an anatomical target or follow, let's say, pre-planned trajectory, as you can see here in the picture. Because of this underestimation of depth, two objects may seem aligned from top view, as you can see, but if you check from a side view, you can see that they are actually misaligned. So this actually would force surgeons to look from different sides and from different point of views to notice this misalignment. So to account for this, Martin Gomez and others suggested virtual mirrors. So what you can see here are virtual mirrors, and it gives different point of views of the aligned objects, and you can spot the misalignments on the mirror, and you can account for it. Moreover, so Payar and others found that users can estimate the distances between virtual objects more accurately. However, these findings were not reflected on the augmented reality navigation systems that we found in systematic review that we performed on AR for craniomaxillofacial surgery. And so what we noticed is that 18 articles had shown augmentations of instrument, whereas 21 didn't. And so therefore, the goal of this study is to answer the following questions. So is instrument augmentation important? In other words, should we rely on egocentric or exocentric alignment? And also, can we improve fine motor skills for instrument alignment tests when using optical see-through devices? So for this, we used an augmented reality system composed of Microsoft HoloLens 2, an electromagnetic tracking system, NDI Aurora, and also 6 degrees of freedom pointer. And the task was to actually align the pointer with a pre-planned trajectory. And so the variable that we wanted to check is the visual representation. So for this, to get the users familiar with this system, so we give them some tasks, and it was to actually try and reach this sphere center. So in this one, there is no representation of the instrument, and this one there is a representation following the instrument. And a third step, we gave them more, let's say, harder task where they have to align these two blue and pink, let's say, objects, and make it as accurate as possible. And for this one, so it's the system that confirms the correct positioning. So the constraints were 3 millimeter on these, and here we made it even harder. So 1 millimeter on the tip and 1 degree on orientation. And so after the training session, we gave them the real task, and which is to align the instrument with the pre-planned trajectory that you see here. And in this one, the difference is that the users has actually to confirm a good alignment. So we had the first condition where there is no visualization of the pointer, which is egocentric, let's say. And we had two others where we have a real representation, and the metaphor that we call virtual extension. So what it consists of is the real representation extended by virtual disks, and this was inspired from traditional surgical navigation, where you can use 2D crosshairs to align an instrument to an anatomical target. The goal of using these virtual extensions is to provide more size to an object instead of a multi-view kind of visualization. So during this experiment, we collected some data. So we collected positional orientation error, also the average pointer and head velocities. And after each condition, we passed NASA TLX and SUS forms to be filled by the participant. So the hypothesis underlying the experiment is that we are expecting that exocentric conditions perform better than egocentric conditions, and this is because we're expecting that virtual extensions, and this one gives more, let's say, reference to make it easier for the users to perform better. And however, for the subjective measurements, we are expecting that virtual extensions would perform lower, so users will be more frustrated because they have to align more objects. So in the end, so we had 18 volunteers go through the experiments, including 5 surgeons, and in total they performed 324 alignment tasks. So for the positional and rotational error, we can already notice that virtual extensions users that perform this perform better than in real representation and in normal or in a no representation. For the pointer velocity and head velocity, they were quite similar. However, for the frustration, it was not as we expected. So users reported that they felt less frustrated using virtual extensions. We also gave them a form to see how confident they are. So we tell them to rank actually the conditions based on what they think they performed better in, and we checked this on the data. So for the virtual extensions, 15 users said that they think they performed better with this, and 14 of them actually did perform better, but only 9 actually preferred to use virtual extensions. So the virtual the focus of the study, let's say about the limitations, is that the focus of the study was on the metaphor of virtual extensions. So we didn't think of the size, the color, or the shape of the virtual extensions, or the opacity also. And also we couldn't perform like big meta-analysis on a gender or scale on the overall performance. So to conclude this presentation, we can say that exocentric conditions perform better than egocentric. So instrument augmentation is preferable in in this scenario, which is aligning instruments. And we saw also that for the virtual extensions, users performed better for positional orientation error and felt actually less frustrated than the no visualization or the normal visualization techniques. So yeah, thanks for your attention, and feel free to ask any question.
So thank you for the presentation. We have time for some questions. I remind the audience that you can ask questions in the chat or in the Q&A feature of Zoom and also on Discord. So I do have a question, in fact, so thank you for this very interesting talk. I was wondering, you said that only 9 participants prefer the virtual extensions. Why only 9? Did some participants notice some disadvantages or things they don't like on this virtual extension?
I can think of various reasons, but I would say that, for example, if you have for example, those who preferred no visualization at all, the thing is that they felt easier to do it because they don't have a lot of references to check. For virtual extensions, I think maybe like the virtual extensions that we provided are an overkill. So we had like 3 disks, and it might kind of occlude the view of the users, and they feel like some of them felt really frustrated because they can see the misalignment so fast that they keep always trying to perform the best, and that I guess this is one of the main reasons that they prefer the other ones.
And the task was only an alignment task, so there is no other augmentation, because I was wondering if there is some overlapping issues or occlusion issues because of the size of the virtual extension.
Yeah, so the task was only on, so say it was only an alignment task. And yeah, I think if there is like I think where they performed better, let's say, because if you have like a depth estimation of 1 to 2 millimeters that you can see on this axis, like those references would help you actually account for your misinterpretation of that depth. Yeah, so that's I guess that's what I want to say.
Okay, and do you think that how important is the shape of the virtual extension? Can we think about some specific virtual extension for some specific task, or other generic? Is the one you used seems very generic, but if you want to have something like orientation calibration, it won't be very useful because of the symmetrical form. So can we think about some, more generic virtual augmentation?
Yeah, I can think of some. So for example, for this one, why we did this kind of disc shaped is because this orientation didn't matter, so the roll didn't matter. But yeah, I can think of, for example, cubes, because cubes can give you like, if you know that they are cubes, you can see the 90 degrees from all sides, and actually this would, I would think that it would help in performing better alignment also.
Okay, thank you for this very interesting presentation.